Good morning. This meeting will now come to order. Today's meeting is being conducted by video teleconference, and we welcome those of you joining us via the meeting portal. I will now read the EPSB mission statement. The Education Professional Standards Board, in full collaboration and cooperation with its education partners, promotes high levels of student achievement by establishing and enforcing rigorous professional standards for preparation, certification, and responsible and ethical behavior of all professional educators in Kentucky. Sharon Chesser joins us today as Board Secretary. Ms. Chesser, thank you for joining us. Please call the roll.
Amanda Ellis, Susan Reber,
Present.
Diane Berry,
Diane Berry, present.
Elijah Edwards, CJ Fryer,
CJ Fryer, present.
Kathy Gunn, Priscilla Keller,
Priscilla Keller here.
Amy Lingo,
Amy Lingo, present.
Jacqueline Mayfield, Corinne Murphy,
Corinne Murphy, present.
Meredith Pittman,
Meredith Pittman, present.
Lisa Rosinski,
Lisa Rodzinski, present.
Amber Snell,
Amber Snell, present.
Vice Chair Weedman,
Sarah Wiesman, present.
Chair Mitchell.
Justin Mitchell, present.
We have quorum.
Thank you. This morning we will start with action items. Item A is presented by Cassie Trueblood.
Hey, good morning. This morning, actually, the first three action items are all somewhat similar because they are some revisions to administrative regulations that the board has recently approved. And these suggested revisions are based on feedback that we received from the Legislative Research Commission. So beginning with action item A, which is on page 3 of your agenda book, this is in regards to the interim certificate. The interim certificate is the one-year certificate that was created by House Bill 319 during the last legislative session. This one-year certificate is available to applicants with a minimum of a bachelor's degree and 4 years of work experience in the area of certification. You did see the proposed regulation that the board approved, both the emergency and ordinary, at the June meeting. That was then filed with the Legislative Research Commission, and during their initial review, they provided some feedback to us that actually the certificate was not intended to require an offer of employment. In originally reading the language in the House bill where it does place requirements on districts in regards to limiting the number of those individuals that can be hired on an interim certificate, as well as requiring a mentor teacher, that paired with the fact that our other one-year certificates do require an offer of employment. Originally, we had read that language in the House bill simply to require an offer of employment, and so that was included in the administrative regulation that we have filed. The bill sponsor, as well as the committee staff, has indicated that that is not the intent of this, that this was meant to be an interim certificate that is available to individuals to come and apply for and then seek employment. So all other aspects of that regulation would remain in effect. We are simply asking the board to approve an agency amendment that removes the requirement of an offer of employment for when the individual applies for the certificate and when they apply for renewal. If you approve this today, we will work with the LRC staff to get that formatted and filed. We believe that the bill sponsor is going to request that this emergency regulation be up to the August R's meeting so that they can get that in effect. Are there any questions about the proposed change?
Yeah,
Captain
Lisa, go ahead.
So I have a question. This directly impacts a lot of CTE work. how is it different than the provisional one-year certificate that an applicant applies for a CTE teaching position, but they do need that offer of employment before the board will issue that provisional one-year certificate? I studied this and I couldn't quite figure out, is it still requiring NTI that is currently required as a 2-year option? It mentions a mentor teacher, or is this for non-CTE related certifications?
So it actually, they have a pathway for it for both. The language in House Bill 319, the standard is that it would be a bachelor's degree and 4 years of experience in the area of certification. For CTE, you can not have that bachelor's degree and have 8 years of experience. They would be required to have a mentor teacher. However, the certificate is only the 1-year certificate. They can renew it up to 2 times, but it is not available past June of 2026, and it does not lead to full certification. Whereas if you had an individual that met the requirements for the CTE provisional certificate, they are going to want to go that route so that they can get the full certification. We do expect with this certificate, this is probably going to capture a very small number of applicants because in the CTE realm, there's already pathways that most would be available to. Same for the traditional prepared teachers. With this, we do see that most people, if they're wanting to obtain full certification, they're going to go either the option 6 route or proficiency, depending on what their background is. Also, this with the work experience piece, there's the potential they could go option 1. All 3 of those would lead to full certification as opposed to just the temporary.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Any other questions or discussion? All right. Well, hearing none, at this time, I will need a motion.
I make a motion to approve the agency amendment to the emergency and ordinary administrative regulation.
Thank you, Ms. Snell. And is there a second?
Sarah Weedman, second.
Thank you, Ms. Weedman. The motion before the board is to approve the motion of the agency amendment to the emergency and ordinary administrative regulation 16 KAR 2240. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Chesser, please call the roll.
Diane Berry,
Diane Berry, approve.
CJ Fryer, CJ.
Sorry, not unmuting. My bad. CJ Fryer,
Okay.
approve.
Okay. Priscilla Keller,
Priscilla Keller, approve.
Amy Lingo,
Amy Lingo, approve.
Corinne Murphy,
Corinne Murphy, approve.
Meredith Pittman,
Meredith Pittman, approve.
Susan Reber,
Susan Reber, approve.
Lisa Rosinski,
Lisa Rodzinski, approve.
Amber Snell,
Amber Snell, approve.
Vice Chair Weedman,
Sarah Weedman, approve.
Chair Mitchell.
Justin Mitchell, approve.
Voting is complete.
Thank you. And the motion passes. Next, we have action item B.
Action item B starts on page 6 of your agenda book. And this is a suggested substitute to 16 KAR 9080, which is the administrative regulation that sets the requirements for option 6. The board approved an emergency and ordinary amendment to this regulation at the April board meeting based on legislative action in Senate Bill 49, which extended the renewal period for our option 6 and option 7 candidates from 2 to 4. However, we did limit that for those teachers pursuing certification for special education and IECE in order to comply with the federal IDEA regulations. Those teachers are still limited to the 2 renewals. This regulation was filed with the Legislative Research Commission and has gone through the comment period. That is now closed for the emergency, and the ordinary will close at the end of this month. No comments were received from outside parties. However, we did receive comments from the LRC staff that in reviewing the federal regulation and looking at Senate Bill 49, that Senate Bill 49 itself does not make any exceptions. It is adding that 4-year renewal for everybody. However, they do understand that we have to comply with the federal regulation. And so are in agreement that that does apply to special education. They had some questions about the IECE certification, and we did specify that in Kentucky, that is also a special education certificate and subject to those IDEA regulations. However, the language in the IDEA regulation does apply that limitation to those teaching in public schools, and the option 6 certificate, the temporary provisional, can be issued to those teaching in certified non-public schools. And so they have recommended that to comply with Senate Bill 49, that those in non-public schools would not be subject to that limitation. So you do have attached in your materials for review the suggested substitute, which does amend the language that imposes that limitation of 2 renewals. Specifically would state that teachers of exceptional children or interdisciplinary early childhood education employed in public schools. So it would more narrowly tailor that limitation, and those employed in non-public schools would be eligible for all four renewals of the temporary provisional. Are there any questions regarding the suggested substitute? If approved today, we would file that with the Legislative Research Commission for the emergency. And then at the end of the comment period, which would be starting August 1st, we would also file that for the ordinary to have it on the August agenda for the Administrative Regulation Review Subcommittee.
Any questions? Hearing none at this time, I will need a motion.
I make the motion.
Lisa Rudzinski. Oh,
I heard Ms.
Go right
Snell
ahead,
first
Lisa.
with the
Go ahead,
motion.
Lisa.
go ahead, Amber.
I have Ms. Snell down. I've written it down there. And so second.
Second.
Thank you,
Second.
Captain Rudzinski. With the second, the motion before the board is to approve the suggested substitute to the Emergency and Ordinary Administrative Regulation 16 KAR 9080. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Chester, please call the roll.
Diane Barry,
Diane Barry, approve.
CJ Fryer,
CJ Fryer, approve.
Priscilla Keller,
Priscilla Keller, approve.
Amy Lingo,
Amy Lingo, approve.
Corinne Murphy,
Corinne Murphy, approve.
Meredith Pittman,
Meredith Pittman, approve.
Susan Reber,
Susan Reber, approve.
Lisa Rudzinski,
Lisa Rudzinski, approve.
Amber Snell,
Amber Snell, approve.
Vice Chair Weidman,
Sarah Weidman, approve.
Chair Mitchell.
Justin Mitchell, approve.
Voting is complete.
Thank you. And the motion passes. Next, we have action item C.
Okay, this is the last action item from me this morning, but this is also the suggested substitute for 16 KAR 9100, which is the option 7 regulation. So this is the same as the suggested substitute of updating that language just to exclude, or actually to allow the full renewal period for those special education and IECE teachers teaching in the non-certified or the certified public schools.
Any further questions? All right, hearing none, do I have a motion?
Lisa Rudzinski, I make the motion to approve the suggested substitute to emergency and ordinary administrative regulations.
Thank you, Captain Rudzinski.
Second.
And the second, I think, was Ms.
No.
Snell. I wasn't looking. Thank you. The motion before the board is to approve the suggested substitute to the Emergency and Ordinary Administration Regulation 16 KAR 9100. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Chesser, please call the roll.
Diane Barry,
Diane Barry, approve.
CJ Fryer,
CJ Fryer, approve.
Priscilla Keller,
Priscilla Keller, approve.
Amy Lingo,
Amy Lingo, approve.
Corinne Murphy,
Corinne Murphy, approve.
Meredith Pittman,
Meredith Pittman, approve.
Susan Reber,
Susan Reber, approve.
Lisa Rosinski,
Lisa Rosinski, approve.
Amber Snell,
Amber Snell, approve.
Vice Chair Weidman,
Sarah Weedman, approve.
Chair Mitchell.
Justin Mitchell, approve.
Voting is complete.
Thank you, and the motion passes. Next, we have action item D, presented by Byron Darnell.
Good morning, everyone. Hope you're doing well. For action item D, this addresses 16 KAR 5040, and it is a request to allow student teachers to maintain classified employment for the 23-24 school year. The rationale for the request comes with the addition of the option 9 pathway that allows candidates in that route to complete their student teaching requirements while maintaining classified employment. This waiver would allow similar opportunities for candidates in traditional preparation programs and serves to support school districts seeking to grow their own educators by investing, not investigating, correct that, by investing in their current classified staff. Additionally, this waiver allows adult learners returning to teacher certification programs to maintain their full-time employment, pay, and benefits while completing their student teaching requirements. So in summation, this would allow the districts to continue classified employment, which would be prohibited as a result of KRS 1610106 7 that states a student teacher shall not receive direct compensation for student teaching. And so during their employment, this
Byron, just to clarify, sorry, the statement about the student teacher not receiving direct compensation, that's not a statutory requirement.
Regulation.
That's in the regulation. Yes. The board cannot waive statute, but people can waive regulation.
Yep, sorry, clarification, because KAR 5040 in attachment 2 KRS 161. So in summary, this request would allow student teachers who are also employed as a classified staff member in the district completing student teaching to maintain their employment status while completing their requirements. Student teachers would still be required to meet all other requirements set out in 16 KAR 5040 Section 5, but would be able to receive compensation through their classified employment with the district. Use of this conditional waiver will require approval of the classified employment by the district and approval from the educator preparation program that the student teacher is able to meet the requirements of the student teaching placement while maintaining classified employment. And so the question before you is the conditional approval of the waiver for the 23-24 school year.
Does anybody have any questions or discussion?
I have a question. Cassie, since this is a regulation and not statutory, is that something that we can look at adjusting as we move forward? Because if I'm not mistaken, we're not only waiving it for this instance of option 9, but we also waive it for student teaching of like students who are student teaching, but also are in a classroom emergency.
part of the reason or part of the justification for bringing this waiver forward is that those in the option 9 pathway without a waiver, they already have the ability, because the statute requires them to be in a classified employment while completing the requirements of the program. They're already able to do that. However, our traditional route teachers and those going the initial graduate level programs that are required to complete student teaching, the regulation has a limitation in there that states a student teacher shall not receive direct compensation for student teaching. The board has waived that to allow, and this was the waiver that you approved in June, that allows those that are also obtaining emergency substitute certification to count that towards their student teaching. And so this would now capture those individuals that are also in classified employment with the district. So that's not going to be the emergency substitute, because that is the certified, but those that have a classified position and are able to maintain that classified employment and also meet the requirements of student teaching. With this waiver request, you do have letters of support from multiple districts that are attached, beginning on page 23 of your agenda book. But with this, if the board were to approve this today, staff would continue to solicit feedback from districts regarding this, much as we have with the approval of the emergency substitute certification for student teachers, to make this, make the final amendments to 5040 that we will be bringing back to you this fall. A long answer to your question, but yes, this is possible to change in the regulation.
Okay, thank you. I just didn't know if we needed to keep doing waivers or at what point we needed to update the regulation to the current needs of our employment arena. Thank you.
In June, when the board approved that waiver, it was noted that staff would be making that into a permanent change. This is a slightly different waiver, but if this is the desire of the board, then we would make that change as well.
Thank you, Ms. Snell. That was a great question. Any other question or discussion? Dr. Murphy?
Thank you, Chair Mitchell. So I just wanted to add a slight bit of context here as to who this really impacts. So when you're talking about instructional assistants in the classrooms, right now, if they are enrolled in an MAT program or completing their undergraduate degree as a part-time adult learner, they are not able, the district and the university has to be very creative around how student teaching is completed outside the terms of the classified employment. And so this allows students to, if they happen to be the instructional assistant in the classroom where their student teaching is going to happen, that same mentoring teacher, that same supervising teacher is going to stay there. Nothing changes in the arrangement, but it allows that student to focus on student teaching in their home classroom and not have to come up with ways to get 70 additional instructional days in another classroom or in that classroom in another way, using their vacation days or using summertime. And so it allows universities and districts to be more seamless in the operation of the educator preparation program and that student teaching experience, as opposed to coming up with creative alternatives because we happen to have a regulation that would make people give up their benefits and their pay.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy. Any other questions or discussion? All right. Well, at this time, I will need a motion.
I make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Ms. Snell. And do I have a second?
A second.
I second it.
You're going to have to help me out. I just heard a lot of names. Or I heard a lot of, I will
Corinne
second.
wants to second this one a lot. Corinne Murphy.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Murphy. Sorry about that. I was looking down and trying to write names at the same time. The motion before the board is to approve the conditional waiver to allow student teachers to maintain classified employment for the 2023-2024 school year. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Jesser, please call the roll.
Diane Barry,
Diane Barry, approve.
CJ Fryer,
CJ Fryer, approve.
Priscilla Keller,
Priscilla Keller, approve.
Amy Lingo,
Approve.
Corinne Murphy,
Corinne Murphy, approve.
Meredith Pittman,
Meredith Pittman, approve.
Susan Reber,
Susan Reber, approve.
Lisa Rosinski,
Lisa Rosinski, yes.
Amber Snell,
Amber Snell, yes.
Vice Chair Weedman,
Sarah Weedman, approve.
Chair Mitchell.
Justin Mitchell, approve.
Voting is complete.
Thank you, Ms. Chesser, and the motion passes. The board is now ready to review waiver request KRS 161028-1N provides that the board has the authority to waive its administrative regulations when a request is submitted by an applicant for certification, a post-secondary institution, or a superintendent of a local school district. When requesting a waiver, the requesting party must submit to the board a written request along with appropriate justification for the waiver. EPSB staff reviewed the waivers with the EPSB's waiver committee during an open meeting immediately prior to this meeting, and the waiver committee formulated recommendations. Todd Davis will present the waiver request to the full board, and waiver committee member Lisa Rosinski will present the committee's recommendation for final action, starting with waiver A.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Chair Mitchell. Waiver A is in regard to 16 KAR 3090 and is a request to allow instructional and leadership classroom experiences in a role as a school counselor to meet the 3-year teaching requirement for a statement of eligibility for principalship. It is in regards to Katrina Allen Day, and these items can be found on pages 34 through 59 in your board materials. Ms. Day is a certified school counselor in Kentucky and Indiana. She's been employed in JCPS as a school counselor since 2008. However, she was employed in New Albany, Floyd County schools in Indiana prior to coming to Kentucky. She was admitted into WKU's principal certification program based on her 11 years of counseling experience in Indiana, and in addition to other counseling duties. Ms. Day completed the WKU program in 2018 and recently passed the required SLLA, Kentucky Principal Statement of Eligibility Assessment for principalship. Her university has made the recommendation for the principal SOE and she has provided extensive documentation on her classroom instructional experiences. Ms. Day is requesting that the board approve this request to accept her years of classroom instructional experiences in the role of a school counselor, and she may be issued a principal SOE, statement of eligibility.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. And at this time, Captain Rosinski, what was the waivers? What did you all decide?
The waiver committee reviewed the waiver request and supporting documentation submitted by the applicant of waiver A. The committee found exceptional circumstances justifying the waiver. Therefore, the committee recommended that the EPSB grant the waiver.
Thank you, Captain Rosinski. This item is on the agenda for action, and at this time I will need a motion.
Make a motion to approve the waiver.
Thank you, Ms. Snell. And is there a second?
Susan Reber, second.
Thank you, Ms. Reber. The motion before the board is to approve the waiver to allow instructional experience as a school counselor to meet the requirement of 3 years teaching experience for the issuance of principal certification for Katrina Day. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Chesser, please call the roll.
Diane Barry,
Diane Barry, approve.
CJ Fryer,
CJ Fryer, approve.
Priscilla Keller,
Priscilla Keller, approve.
Amy Lingo,
Amy Lingo, approve.
Corinne Murphy,
Corinne Murphy, recuse.
Meredith Pittman,
Meredith Pittman, approve.
Susan Reber,
Susan Reber, approve.
Lisa Rosinski,
Lisa Rosinski, yes.
Amber Snell,
Amber Snell, yes.
Vice Chair Weedman,
Sarah Weedman, approve.
Chair Mitchell.
Justin Mitchell, approve.
Voting is complete.
Thank you, and the motion passes. Next, we have waiver B.
Waiver B, as well as the next several, are going to be in regards to 16 KAR 4030, requesting a waiver to the equivalent certification requirement for out-of-state prepared educators. This one's related to Darren Blake Gamble, and these items are found in pages 60 through 63 in your packet. Mr. Gamble is a current educator in Johnson County schools. He's certified in special education learning behavior disorders. Johnson County has had a need for a driver's ed teacher for some time, but there's no one who holds the endorsement in the school district. Additionally, there are no Kentucky institutions that currently offer the driver's ed endorsement program. Mr. Gamble completed the online program at Grandview University in Iowa, consisting of 9 graduate hours. This program results in the driver's ed endorsement in Iowa, and is also the institution is regionally and nationally accredited through the Higher Learning Commission, North Central Association, as well as our NC-SARA accreditation or accreditors. Mr. Gamble and Mr. Johnson County are requesting that the board waive the requirement of possessing the equivalent certification in Iowa and allow him to be issued the driver's ed endorsement for Kentucky.
Thank you. And Captain Rosinski, what was the waiver committee's recommendation?
The waiver committee reviewed the waiver request and supporting documentation submitted by the applicant for waiver B. The committee found exceptional circumstances justifying the waiver, and therefore the committee recommends that the EPSB grant the waiver.
Thank you for that. And do I have a motion?
Amber Snell, I make a motion to approve the waiver.
Thank you, Ms. Snell. Is there a second?
Sarah Weedman, second.
Thank you, Vice Chair Weedman. The motion before the board is to approve the waiver, equivalent certification requirement for out-of-state prepared educator Darren Gamble. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Dresser, please call the roll.
Diane Berry,
Diane Berry, approve.
CJ Fryer,
CJ Fryer, approve.
Priscilla Keller,
Priscilla Keller, approve.
Amy Lingo,
Amy Lingo, approve.
Corinne Murphy,
Corinne Murphy, approve.
Meredith Pittman,
Meredith Pittman, approve.
Susan Reber,
Susan Reber, approve.
Lisa Rosinski,
Lisa Rosinski, yes.
Amber Snell,
Amber Snell, approve.
Vice Chair Weedman,
Sarah Weedman, approve.
Chair Mitchell.
Justin Mitchell, approve.
Voting is complete.
Thank you, and the motion passes. Moving now to waiver C.
Waiver C, also in regards to 16 KAR 4030, is a request from Austin Riddle. And it can be found in pages 64 through 66 in your materials. Ashland Independent Schools is looking to employ Ohio University recent graduate Austin Riddle. However, Mr. Riddle has not obtained the Ohio teacher certification or licensure for that state. Mr. Riddle's program completion and university recommendation include middle school science as well as social studies. He has taken and passed the Kentucky required praxis assessments for both middle school social studies, or for middle school social studies. Mr. Riddle and Ashland Independent Schools are requesting the board waive the requirement of possessing the equivalent certification in Ohio and allow him to be issued the middle school social studies certification here in Kentucky.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. And Captain Rosinski, what is the waiver committee's recommendation?
The waiver committee reviewed the waiver request submitted by Ashland Independent Schools. The committee found exceptional circumstances justifying the waiver. Therefore, the committee recommends the EPSB grant waiver C.
Correct. All right. Thank you for that. And at this time, I will need a motion.
Make a
CJ
motion.
Fryer,
Go ahead, CJ.
I make a motion to approve the waiver.
Thank you, Mr. Fryer. And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Snell. The motion before the board is to approve 16 KAR 4030, a request to waive equivalent certification requirement for out-of-state educator Austin Riddle. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Chesser, please call the roll.
Discussion.
Oh, go. I'm sorry.
I have a question for, I guess, maybe the waiver committee or Cassie. Have we done and approved this before? What's precedent on this?
Yes, with these out-of-state prepared educator waivers, if they have met the requirements for issuance of the certificate in another state, with the exception of actually holding that certificate. So typically it's going to be not taking the praxis exams required by the other state. But if they have met those other requirements and meet the requirements for issuance of the Kentucky certificate, the board has approved this. We did discuss with the waiver committee this morning that this is one of the regulations that we have slated to bring back to the board this fall to put this in place in the regulation so that it does not have to come back to you through the waiver process.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for catching me there. Since we're Zoom, or we're in the teleconference, if I don't see you, please stop me before we move on if you have any discussion. I'm sorry about that. Any other discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Chesser, please call the roll.
Diane Berry,
Diane Berry, approve.
CJ Fryer,
CJ Fryer, approve.
Priscilla Keller,
Priscilla Keller, approve.
Amy Lingo,
Amy Lingo, approve.
Corinne Murphy,
Corinne Murphy, approve.
Meredith Pittman,
Meredith Pittman, approve.
Susan Reber,
Susan Reber, approve.
Lisa Rosinski,
Lisa Rosinski, approve.
Amber Snell,
Amber Snell, approve.
Vice Chair Weedman,
Sarah Weedman, approve.
Chair Mitchell.
Justin Mitchell, approve.
Voting is complete.
Thank you. And the motion passes. Next, we have waiver D.
Waiver D, also 4030 is request, waiver request for Melody Ann Wallace. These items are located on pages 67 through 74 in your materials. Ms. Wallace received her initial teaching degree from Florida Gulf Coast University, and she relocated to Kentucky through Indiana 11 years ago, holding elementary certification as well as middle school English and communications. She sought to obtain a second master's degree for a rank 1 status in an area which she felt would most benefit her students. And this was done through the online Masters of Social Work program through the University of Central Florida online. She also completed the 1,000 hours of required supervision in her Kentucky school district to satisfy the requirements for the social worker certification in the state of Florida. She completed the social work program in August of 2022, fulfilling the requirements for the Florida school social worker certification. The University of Central Florida, as well as the Florida Department of Education, each wrote a statement of eligibility stating that she meets the necessary requirements for school social work certification. However, the Florida DOE cannot add the certification to her license unless she holds a teaching position or secured a teaching position in the state of Florida. She is requesting the EPSB approve this waiver to allow the school social work certification as well as rank 1 status without holding the out-of-state license.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. And Captain Rosinski, what was the waiver committee's recommendation for Melody Wallace?
The waiver committee reviewed the waiver request and supporting documentation submitted by the applicant. The committee found exceptional circumstances justifying the waiver, and therefore the committee recommends the EPSB grant the waiver D.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve waiver D.
Thank you, Ms. Snell. Is there a second?
I second. Sarah Weedman.
Thank you, Vice Chair Weedman. The motion before the board is to approve 16 KAR 4030, request to waive equivalent certification requirement for out-of-state prepared educator Melody Wallace. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Chester, please call the roll.
Diane Barry,
Diane Barry, approve.
CJ Fryer,
CJ Fryer, approve.
Priscilla Keller,
Priscilla Keller, approve.
Amy Lingo,
Amy Lingo, approve.
Corinne Murphy,
Corinne Murphy, approve.
Meredith Pittman,
Meredith Pittman, approve.
Susan Reber,
Susan Reber, approve.
Lisa Rosinski,
Lisa Rosinski, approve.
Amber Snell,
Amber Snell, approve.
Vice Chair Weedman,
Sarah Weedman, approve.
Chair Mitchell.
Justin Mitchell, approve.
Voting is complete.
Thank you. And the motion passes. Next, we have waiver E.
Waiver E is in regard to 16 KAR 4080 and is a request to waive the out-of-state recency requirements for applicant Kyle Graves in Simpson County. These items are located in pages 75 through 77 of your materials. Simpson County Schools employed Mr. Graves for the 22-23 school year as a band teacher. He completed an educator certification program in Tennessee in 2016, and he holds current professional certification in the state of Tennessee as well. He has not completed any graduate credits in the past 5 years, but has worked as a fully certified teacher in Tennessee continuously through 2016, or beginning 2016 through 22, at which time he moved to Kentucky and has been employed in Simpson County. Mr. Graves and Simpson County are requesting that the out-of-state recency requirement of the 6 graduate hours be waived so he can apply for the 5-year renewal without completing additional graduate coursework.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. And Captain Rosinski, what was the waiver committee's recommendation?
The waiver committee reviewed the waiver request submitted by Simpson County Schools for waiver E. The committee found exceptional circumstances justifying the waiver. Therefore, the committee recommends the EPSB grant the waiver. I would like to note that there was some discussion about the fact that this applicant had received a 1-year certificate last year pending the attainment of those hours and did not do so and has made the same request this year. The waiver committee did move to pass it out of the committee, but we wanted the full board to be aware that there was discussion about that.
And Chair Mitchell, if I may, to also follow up on the committee's discussion and some of the precedent that we shared with the committee during the meeting is beginning in December, the board has seen these requests come through, and in reviewing them, when you have found that the individual has had continuous employment, that there wasn't a break in service before they came to Kentucky, the board had been approving these requests. I believe the one that came in December was from a superintendent who really pointed out that the 6 hours required with the recency was really a hardship on our border districts because they were losing people who were then able to go across the border without having to have that additional coursework. From a historical standpoint, recency in 16 KAR 4080 was in place when the rank 2 requirement was in place. And so there was an exception that if the individual coming from out of state possessed rank 2 or was at that rank 2 level, that individual, if they had 2 years of teaching experience within the last 10 years, they were exempt from having those 6 hours. This individual does meet that. However, they do not hold rank 2. And because this regulation was created in a rank 2 required world, there was not an exception for based on teaching experience for those below a rank 2. So in recognition of the board's recent actions, as well as the fact that there is no longer a rank 2 requirement, staff will work to update 4080 to reflect the fact that there can be an exception to recency for those individuals with continuous teaching who meet that requirement, whereas it would still be required for those individuals that had a break in service, which is in line with the actions that the board has taken in regards to these waivers.
Thank you for that clarification. Is there any other discussion or questions that we have? All right, so at this time I will need a motion. Do I have a motion before the board?
Corinne Murphy, I move that we approve the waiver. The waiver, is this E?
Yes.
Yes.
All
Snell,
right.
second.
Okay, so Dr. Murphy with the motion and Ms. Snell with the second. The motion before the board is to approve 16 KAR 4080 request to waive out-of-state recency requirements for Kyle Graves. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Chester, please call the roll.
Diane Berry,
Diane Berry, approve.
Jay Fryer,
CJ Fryer, approve.
Priscilla Keller,
Priscilla Keller, approve.
Amy Lingo,
Amy Lingo, approve.
Corinne Murphy,
Corinne Murphy, approve.
Meredith Pittman,
Meredith Pittman, approve.
Susan Reber,
Susan Reber, approve.
Lisa Rosinski,
Lisa Rudzinski, approve.
Amber Snell,
Amber Snell, approve.
Chair Weedman,
Sarah Weedman, approve.
Chair Mitchell.
Justin Mitchell, recuse.
Voting is complete.
Thank you, and the motion passes. Last, we have waiver F.
Waiver F is in regard to 16 KAR 8010 and is a request to allow a Master's of Divinity for rank 1 for Robert Denison Strickland. These items are located on pages 78 through 83 in your materials. Mr. Strickland currently holds a rank 2 in learning behavior disorders. And in addition to that, he has completed, or to lead to that, he completed a Master's of Arts in Teaching, which resulted in his initial certification in May of 2023. Prior to obtaining his teacher certification, he also completed a Master of Divinity with Biblical Languages from Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary in Fort Worth, Texas in 1995. Mr. Strickland has provided a rationale demonstrating how the coursework in his degree impacts his work as a teacher, as well as counseling students through tragic events in the school system. He's requesting that the EPSB approve his degree for rank 1 due to the applied relevance in the classroom.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. And Captain Rosinski, what was the waiver committee's recommendation?
The waiver committee reviewed the waiver request for waiver F and supporting documentation submitted by the applicant. The committee did not find exceptional circumstances to justify the waiver. Therefore, the committee recommends that the EPSB deny the waiver request.
Thank you, Captain Rosinski. Do I have a motion?
CJ Fryer.
I think I heard Mr. Fryer first with the motion.
I make a motion to.
Go ahead. I think I've got the motion for CJ Fryer to
deny the motion, to deny the waiver.
Thank you for that. And then I have Ms. Snell for the second, I believe.
No, I had a question.
Okay. Let's wait now, since we have the motion. Let's wait for the discussion.
I'll second CJ's to deny waiver F.
Okay. Thank you, Vice Chair Weedman. At this time, are there any discussion? Ms. Snell?
So my question is when we deny these, do we provide feedback to the applicants as far as how they can pursue that rank change without necessarily going through and getting a whole nother degree? I ask this from personal experience, having come to teaching with an MBA already, that there was some frustration that my master's was not recognized. And I know from my organization communication in the classroom, I use my MBA on a daily basis. I ended up adding on a business certification and only taking like 6 more hours or something like that. But it was frustrating having been in a different field as a higher level professional coming in and those things not counting. So I just am curious, as when we deny this waiver, do we provide some insight as to, okay, we denied it based on this, but for this to be utilized or for this to count, you could do X amount to secure this higher rank?
I will speak to that a little bit. So the letter that goes out following the board meeting is a fairly standard letter that does just state what the board's decision is and then provides the point of contact should someone request further information. However, on the front end with this request, as with most of the certification requests, they have been told about the possibilities and the likely board decision. This individual had originally been in contact with Crystal Horde. Crystal she just left at the end of last week to take a job in Scott County Schools. So she is not here to talk about that specifically. But my understanding from her before she left was that she did provide the individual with some updates of potential paths forward should the board choose to deny in line with their previous decisions when presented with a Master's of Divinity.
Thank you, Cassie.
Vice Chair Weedman?
To add to that, my understanding as well is that if you, let's say that you came into teaching with a law degree and then you got like an alternate cert, but you ended up at a school teaching like a pre-law course or like English law, then you could apply for a rank 1 because you were currently using that as an educational point. Because this person is in a public school and we, as far as I know, do not have any biblical courses, I don't think it's applicable because they're not currently using the skill set or teaching from what they learned in those courses. Is kind of from my understanding of looking at some of the things.
So yes, along with Vice Chair Weedman's points with that, when these degrees that are not part of an approved rank change program, or they're not adding an additional level of certification, it is looked at to see if they align with the current certificate. There has to be a benefit that is applied there. So, for example, when somebody will say, well, I have this counseling degree and it allows me to counsel students. Well, if you're not a certified school counselor, you actually shouldn't be counseling students, in that, there's some issues that arise with that as well. However, if you have this, you add the school counselor certificate, the previous coursework could also enhance that and increase your rank. We have seen some of the coursework align with social studies certification, and align to the academic standards and be able to be utilized in that realm. And Dr. Murphy, I'm sorry, as I started speaking, I saw your hand raise.
No, actually, what you just provided really is context for what I'm about to say, which is during the course of the waiver committee, it was discussed whether the content within the master's degree did align with the social studies standards, and it was not found to have an alignment. And so that context was, or that discussion did occur, and that really was what led to our recommendation that we deny this.
Thank you for that too.
Any other discussion at this time? Hearing none. Ms. Chester, I'll just say before we call the roll, just want to say the motion before the board is to deny 16 KAR 8010, a request to allow Master of Divinity for rank 1 for Robert Strickland. So if you vote In favor of this motion, a yes vote would be to deny it. A no vote would be to not deny it, but not to accept it either. So just wanted to clarify that before we move forward. And at this time, Ms. Chesser, please call the roll.
Diane Barry,
Diane Barry, yes, deny.
CJ Fryer,
CJ Fryer, yes.
Priscilla Keller,
Priscilla Keller, yes.
Amy Lingo,
Amy Lingo, yes.
Corinne Murphy,
Corinne Murphy, yes.
Meredith Pittman,
Meredith Pittman, yes.
Susan Reber,
Susan Reber, yes.
Lisa Rosinski,
Lisa Rodzinski, yes.
Amber Snell,
Amber Snell, yes.
Vice Chair Weedman,
Sarah Weedman, yes.
Chair Mitchell.
Justin Mitchell, yes.
Voting is complete.
Thank you, Ms. Chesser, and thank you, Mr. Davis and Captain Rosinski and everyone on the waiver committee for that. We have two alternative routes to certification applications. These applications or applicants are pursuing the option 1 exceptional work experience route to certification. This is one of the alternative routes established by the legislature in KRS 161048. An applicant with exceptional work experience must have an offer of employment from a local school district, a bachelor's or graduate degree meeting the minimum GPA requirements, and an academic major or a passing score on an academic content assessment in the area in which the certification is being sought. The board will now determine if the applicant's work experience constitutes exceptional work experience. The applications will be presented by Mr. Davis.
Option 1 alternative route to certification application for Lawrence Macroby. Jefferson County Public Schools has submitted the application as well as Dr. Lawrence Macroby's portfolio. The district is requesting that the EPSB approve his application for certification in music, all grades. The application and portfolio are included on pages 84 through 157 in your materials. Dr. Macroby has over 10 years of experience in the field of music, serving as a director of symphony in Paducah as well as Elizabethtown. He has also served as an instructor and director of operations for the Racine Scouts Drum Corps, along with personal experiences as a private music instructor. The applicant meets the minimum GPA requirement in the academic area, and Jefferson County Public Schools offered the applicant a teaching position in music, all grades, and is requesting that EPSB approve his work experience for obtaining the certification to teach music.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. At this time, I will need a motion.
Lisa Rodzinski, I make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Captain Rosinski. Is there a second?
Amber Snell, second.
Thank you, Ms. Snell. The motion before the board is to approve the application for Lawrence Macroby, music, all grades. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Chesser, please call the roll.
Diane Barry,
Diane Barry, approve.
CJ Fryer,
CJ Fryer, approve.
Priscilla Keller,
Priscilla Keller, approve.
Amy Lingo,
Amy Lingo, approve.
Corinne Murphy,
Corinne Murphy, approve.
Meredith Pittman,
Meredith Pittman, approve.
Susan Reber,
Susan Reber, approve.
Lisa Rosinski,
Lisa Rodzinski, approve.
Amber Snell,
Amber Snell, approve.
Vice Chair Weedman,
Sarah Weedman, approve.
Chair Mitchell.
Justin Mitchell, approve.
Voting is complete.
And the motion passes. And next we have application B.
Application B, Model Lab Laboratory has submitted an application and portfolio for Lindsay Trimble. Model Lab is requesting that EPSB approve her application for certification in the area of dance, all grades. Application and portfolio are located in your packet on pages 157 through 158 through 179. Ms. Trimble has over 25 years experiences in the field of dance as a studio owner, where she has choreographed and taught ballet, modern dance, tap, jazz, contemporary hip hop, dance history, conditioning, and flexibility to all ages. She has received several awards, including the National Award-winning Choreographer of the Year and Studio prestigious high scoring awards. The applicant meets the minimum GPA requirement. Model Laboratory has offered the applicant a position teaching dance all grades and is requesting the EPSB approve the applicant's work experience for dance certification.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Is there a motion?
Lisa Rudzinski, I make a motion to approve
Thank
the
you,
application.
Thank you,
Susan
Captain
Reaver. Susan
Thank
Reaver,
you.
second.
Thank you, Ms. Reaver, for the second. The motion before the board is to approve the application for Lindsay Trimble in dance for all grades. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Chesser, please call the roll.
Diane Berry,
Diane Berry, approve.
CJ Fryer,
CJ Fryer, approve.
Priscilla Keller,
Priscilla Keller, approve.
Amy Lingo,
Amy Lingo, approve.
Corinne Murphy,
Corinne Murphy, approve.
Meredith Pittman,
Meredith Pittman, approve.
Susan Reaver,
Susan Reaver, approve.
Lisa Rudzinski,
Lisa Rudzinski, approve.
Amber Snell,
Amber Snell, recused.
Vice Chair Weedman,
Sarah Weedman, approve.
Chair Mitchell.
Justin Mitchell, approve.
Voting is complete.
Thank you, and the motion passes. I will now open the floor to any board member for board comments. Does anyone have anything they wish to share? Captain Rudzinski.
I just want to wish Crystal Horde best of luck in her new role with Scott County Schools. In the time I've served on this board in two separate capacities, Ms. Horde, both during meetings and in all of the other times that I've had to contact her, has been helpful, responsive, knowledgeable, and I felt I was able to become a better board member based on her guidance, and I just wanted to wish her well.
And dedication to EPSB throughout the years.
I think our next board meeting is after school starts, so wishing everybody a happy beginning of the year, not just on our board, but also throughout the state of Kentucky as we kind of get going and rolling, and looking forward to an exciting year.
Any other discussion or comments? I would say thank you all for being able to meet today. I know that we're adding another board meeting in July is difficult, but I think it's important to get these waivers out so that the schools can do some hiring there. So I appreciate everybody's commitment to doing that, as well as the staff for working on that diligently to get another meeting squeezed in July. Also, best of luck. I agree. I'm sort of echo what Ms. Snell said, just thinking of all of you all as you start in your roles. And I think we can't go a meeting without me mentioning K-TIP and the importance of K-TIP. And I just know that that is something that the office is working on, looking at that and revamping that. And so I would feel like I was not be doing myself justice, and that is my rally cry, that we need to fully fund K-TIP in whatever capacity that looks. So hopefully we'll be hearing more about that in our August meeting and also throughout the fall. Any other discussions? Well, at this time, I believe we are ready to go into closed session pursuant to KRS 618101C and J to conduct a character and fitness review and to review potential actions relating to complaints and reports. The board will also review pending litigation. At this time, I will need a motion to go into closed session.
Motion.
I think I heard Ms. Berry first. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Ms. Weedman. I think I heard you the first popped in. The motion before the board is a motion to go into closed session. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Chesser, please call the roll.
Diane Berry,
Diane Berry, approve.
CJ Fryer,
CJ Fryer, approve.
Priscilla Keller,
Priscilla Keller, approve.
Amy Lingo,
Amy Lingo, approve.
Corinne Murphy,
Corinne Murphy, approve.
Meredith Pittman,
Meredith Pittman, approve.
Susan Reber,
Susan Reber, approve.
Lisa Rosinski,
Lisa Rodzinski, approve.
Amber Snell,
Amber Snell, approve.
Vice Chair Weidman,
Sarah Weidman, approve.
Chair Mitchell.
Justin Mitchell, approve.
Voting is complete.
Thank you, Ms. Chester, and we are now ready to move into closed session. At this time, I will need a motion to go into open session.
Motion.
I make a motion. Second.
I heard Miss Berry with the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Captain Rosinski. The motion before the board is to go back into open session. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. And the motion is, or we are back into open session. Motion passes. At this time, we will vote on the items discussed during closed session. For character and fitness, 1, approve. 2, approve with conditions. 3, deny. 4 through 18, approve. 19, approve with conditions. 20 and 21, approve. 22, approve with conditions. 23, 24, and 25, approve. And for CA4, emergency substitute character and fitness, number 1, deny, and 2 through 6, approve. At this time, we will go around and vote on, we'll vote on these.
Diane Berry,
Diane Berry, approve.
CJ Fryer,
CJ Fryer, yes to all.
Priscilla Keller,
Priscilla Keller, approve.
Amy Lingo,
Amy Lingo, yes to all.
Corinne Murphy,
Corinne Murphy, yes to all.
Meredith Pittman,
Meredith Pittman, yes to all.
Susan Reber,
Susan Reber, yes to all.
Lisa Rosinski,
Lisa Rodzinski, yes on all.
Amber Snell,
Amber Snell, yes on all.
Vice Chair Weidman,
Sarah Weidman, agree on all.
Chair Mitchell.
Justin Mitchell, approve on all.
Voting is complete.
Thank you, Ms. Sharp. And the motion passes. Just a reminder that we are scheduled for August 21st, and so we'll be getting emails out about that meeting and logistics for that soon. At this time, I will need a motion to adjourn.
Make a
Motion.
motion to adjourn.
Ms. Snell, I have the motion for you, and do I have a second?
Lisa
Second.
Rodzinski, second.
Ms. Berry, I heard is the second. The motion before the board is to adjourn. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Sharp, please call the roll.
Diane Berry,
Diane Berry, approve.
CJ Fryer,
CJ Fryer, approve.
Priscilla Keller,
Priscilla Keller, approve.
Amy Lingo,
Amy Lingo, approve.
Corinne Murphy,
Corinne Murphy, approve.
Meredith Pittman,
Meredith Pittman, approve.
Susan Reber,
Susan Reber, approve.
Lisa Rosinski,
Lisa Rodzinski, yes.
Amber Snell,
Amber Snell, approve.
Vice Chair Weidman,
Sarah Weidman, approve.
Chair Mitchell.
Justin Mitchell, approve.
Voting is complete.
Thank you, Ms. Sharp, and the motion passes, and we are now adjourned.